Israel is 100% committing a genocide, and I feel so deeply ashamed of myself and disappointed that my video could have been interpreted in any other way. This is the first time that I'm gonna try filming a video without doing any cuts and just speaking openly, honestly, uncensored. So hopefully YouTube doesn't take this video down and people don't mass report it. But yeah, when I first made that video, or announced that I was gonna make that video, I guess it was posted on the H3 podcast subreddit, and I started receiving a ton of just mass hate comments, hate messages, almost threats not to post the video. And so I went into making that video with the intention of essentially trying to make an unbiased video, but I could see how doing that created a sort of a video that made it look like I was fence sitting, and that's not my stance at all, and I'm really disappointed that that's how it looked. I had seen Ethan do streams where he's reporting videos as terrorists promoting terrorism, and I did not want that to happen to my video after weeks of research and effort put into the video. And honestly, I was afraid that making certain statements would increase that possibility of the video getting taken down. I had seen sort of a lot of really harsh messages, harsh comments, and was afraid, essentially. And ultimately, that made my video look cowardly. It made it look like I was fence-sitting, like I was a centrist, and that's really embarrassing. I hope that overall my stance comes across, but I also knew that I was out of my depth in covering Palestine, and that's why I was trying to recommend podcasts and things of that nature. So anyways, I hope that also there's not random people that are watching this that have no idea what I'm talking about. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, I just covered a video on H3 and Ethan Klein, and in that I talked about the Israel-Palestine genocide that's happening, except for I used the word conflict because I was so nervous that YouTube would take the video down. I was nervous about censorship. That's been a huge issue that's happened just recently over the past videos. The video that I did on Anna Paul, I heavily censored because she was an OF creator, is an OF creator, and it still got completely demonetized. Weeks and weeks of work just completely gone, essentially unmonetized. You know, I've done videos on certain creators where they've sent me 13 copyright claims over a fair use video that I've worked really hard to make fair use, and still for days, weeks, it goes unmonetized because of that. So because of that, I've become really, really paranoid about videos getting taken down, about censorship, about spending weeks on something and it ending up, you know, taken off of YouTube entirely, essentially not being able to have that video up, not even just for monetization purposes, but for the message not being seen by anyone, messages that I care a lot about, whether it's, you know, keeping children private and offline or Palestine, just anything. And so I wanted to still share the message, still be able to. I think a lot of creators are scared to talk about it because of that very issue, because of suppression and censorship that's happening across platforms. That being said, I still think that I didn't dive into the issue as much as I needed to, and it came across very badly because of that reason, and I totally understand why. Same thing with Sudan. A genocide is happening there, and I should have used that word. So yeah, I completely understand that. Essentially, the reason why I also recommended the Throughline podcast, though I don't even know if that's a good enough source. Again, it's out of my depth in that area. Politics is not an issue that I cover very often or at all. But the reason why I recommended those podcasts was because I almost think that this genocide happening now isn't even the extent of a lot of these issues. There's a huge historical aspect behind it, especially with Israel. I really recommended the Throughline podcast and especially the podcast on settlements just to see how since Israel's inception, They've been they started on Palestinian land. They've been continually subjugating the Palestinian people, encroaching on their land, pushing them away and away and away, and yet simultaneously claiming that they're being targeted by Muslim countries. Of course, the Palestinian people, out of desperation, are going to try to find a way to fight back. And the second that they try and fight back, they're being called terrorists. It's fucked up. And I think that's really fucked up. That's my uncensored, unbiased opinion. I wanted to make a video that I felt like the H3 community could watch and understand the issue that was at hand. But in my unbiased, in my uncensored opinion, I think that the oppressors will push and push and push on the oppressed. And then when the oppressed try to fight back, the oppressors will point the finger and say, you are the violent ones. And that has happened time and time again throughout history. That is my opinion. And I think that Israel is a really good example of that. They have pushed and pushed and pushed on the Palestinian people. And then when the Palestinian people try to fight back, they say, whoa, look at how violent you are. When you look throughout history, they have pushed on them and encroached on their land, done illegal raids. And it makes sense why the Palestinian people would try to fight back and why Hamas came to be in the first place. I think that I was afraid to use certain phrasing that was a little bit too intense in that video because, like I said, Ethan has reported videos and YouTube is very intense. Certain words get used and a video will get taken down completely. I used the Suicide Forest video from Logan Paul for 10 seconds once in a Jake Paul, Logan Paul deep dive that was about 3 hours long. 10 seconds of footage from that and the video got wiped entirely from YouTube. It's been rough out here and I've been afraid because of that. And that's just all honesty. I know that YouTube has come out with some statements saying that they're making it easier to cuss, but and say certain, phrases, but I've been terrified to do that because of my past experiences. And that's just me being entirely honest. But I would still love to know what you think I should do with that video, if I should just take out the Palestine section in general. I know that there have been a lot of theories that H3 has sent certain bots to the comments. Of course, I said that I would film this all in one take, and then this mic ran out of batteries. This is the first time ever filming with these mics, so take two. Last time I was filming, I was talking about Ethan potentially sending bots, but I know that's kind of a ridiculous thing to talk about in this video, so let me move on from that. Let me try and pick up from what I was talking about. I do want to say in this video, I was a huge fan of Hasan. I still am a huge fan of Hasan. The reason why I spoke out about some of his controversies is because I had noticed that a lot of times people kind of put you in a camp as siding with either one creator over another, and I really didn't want this video to come across as that. I didn't want it to feel like my stances were coming from another creator's perspective. I wanted to make that really clear. I think that Hasan deserves a ton of credit for the ways in which he's advocated for Palestine and has continually pushed the issue to the forefront of media when a ton of people were not wanting to talk about it, continually pushing the issue into the sort of background, myself included. I had not talked about it for a long time. I was scared to talk about the issue. I think a lot of creators are just scared in general because they don't talk about politics and they're not well versed on the subject. And I think Hasan deserves a lot of credit for continually speaking out about it. And I think that's very, very much something that he deserves a lot of credit for. That being said, I think that there are things that I disagree with Hasan on or I thought were questionable. And I wanted to mention that, especially so the video was unbiased as possible. The biggest thing being, I wanted it to be something that, you know, whether you're an H3 fan, whether you empathize with Ethan, whether you're pro-Palestine, you're able to watch and understand each perspective. And that was probably way too ambitious for someone who has no idea what they're talking about when it comes to politics. And I definitely understand that. Yeah, I also think that there were a few things that I glossed over because Ethan has such an expansive career online that I could have gone more in depth into. One that someone pointed out was the Jimmy Lee situation, where Jimmy Lee was accused of SA by employees, and Ethan still brought him on to his podcast. Instead of really bringing that up, he kind of, made fun of Jimmy. And, it was just, I kind of glossed over that whole thing since I brought up that incident in the middle of the frenemies situation, glossed over it to move on to frenemies. I could have gone more into that, so I totally agree on that. I think I definitely agree with all of that criticism. And I want to, do the best job possible. I think sometimes it's like I want to put out more content, be able to do that, just for the fact of like, I've gotten complaints sometimes that I take too long to post a video. So I'm essentially trying to balance, doing these extensive deep dives, covering, these issues in a very thorough way, which, I really try to do. I spend weeks looking into these situations, diving into everything. And and so then, but at the same time, I have a tendency to try and go into every single rabbit hole and spend, 20, 30 minutes on topics. And sometimes I think no one cares about this. I'm literally just going on a random tangent about Jimmy Lee and no one's going to care about it. So I need to condense this down to this video. And so to hear like people do want to hear about that, I guess I'm trying to balance that. Like, do people want to hear about it? Do people not want to hear about it? How do I find that balance, if that makes any sense? I think I do want to say to the H3 fan base, the really diehard H3 fan base, the people that, closely follow the subreddit, the people that defend Ethan at all costs, I am getting growingly concerned that you mirror and remind me a lot of the people that I would cover when I did anti-MLM content or MLMs, people that are deeply involved in MLMs. You remind me a lot of them, to be honest, where, they're not allowed to have any dissenting voices in their community. You must always defend either, the MLM company or in this instance, the H3 people, It's a little bit concerning, and it's become very, very toxic, I think, and very toxic for the YouTube community. It's okay to have varied opinions, even if you are a fan of Ethan Klein. That being said, I've also received very bizarre messages outside of the H3 fan base. Like I said, from just announcing this video, I was expecting just all of the hate to be H3 fans. And because of that, I think I had a really wrong approach going into this video. But also, I got some really bizarre messages from people outside that I would have never expected to get. One of them being from Bad and Pinata. And I'm not sure if Bad and Pinata is correct in this. I try my best to showcase things in a very fair way, but this was an email that I received from Bad and Pinata after this video was posted. Greetings. In your recent video, How Ethan Klein Destroyed His Career, you included a clip stolen from my channel to imply that I invented the idea that Ethan Klein said his children consumed feces and contracted diseases from them. That was not my intention to claim that Bad and Pinata is the sole center reason as to why Ethan Klein has been accused of neglecting his children, or for CPS being called on his children. yeah, that was not my intention for showcasing that clip. I guess I'll just provide some context here. While I do think that some people do not deserve empathy, that they've gone beyond the realms of where empathy should be extended to them, I also think that when I do my videos, I try to structure them in a way to understand the person's perspective of whoever I'm covering. So in this video, I noticed when I first started covering Ethan and I was looking into his past, his early content, all of that, I sensed a lot of negativity from Ethan. It was like a dark cloud was hanging over him constantly, and you know, a lot of that could probably be attributed to his mental health issues, which he had spoken about in his early content. And yeah, I guess I was just trying to understand, you know, how that escalated to the point to where Ethan is now. And a lot of that likely due to October 7th and essentially Ethan having an intense cognitive dissonance. You know, him being, you know, living in Israel, upholding these, you know, Israeli values and ideals, and having to sort of face what was happening in front of his eyes, at times condemning the genocide that was taking place, condemning the Israel government, but having to sort of grapple with that and the beliefs that have been sort of ingrained in him from, you know, early days of his existence. And I think that that had that, as well as his, you know, mental state, sort of caused this escalation in Ethan Klein, this sort of paranoia where he started to believe that, you know, people were coming after him, started to sort of lean in more and more to negativity. So I was trying to showcase that, and not necessarily through my words, but through showcasing clips in videos to document that. You know, I always felt like showing clips, showing rather than telling, was very important to do, because there's only so much that I can say, but actually showing what took place might help others understand. And also just for research purposes, looking into the clips. And if someone's saying something, can I find a clip to back that up? It's hard to do, I think, with the H3 podcast when there's just hours and hours of footage, and then hours and hours of footage from other people as well, responding. But I tried to find what I could in the time that I could. And so as far as this instance, you know, I think that Ethan's paranoia clearly started to spike. He started to believe that people were working against him. Instead of unlearning the sort of programming that he had been sort of brought up within, he started to believe that others were working against him. And a huge part of that was the CPS incident, I believed. And so while I think that much of it was likely an exaggeration, in my own opinion, I could also see where Ethan started to believe that from just gathering random clips off the internet of people saying things, spreading it online, starting to believe that there's a harassment campaign against him. And so I was trying to showcase that. And through showing this clip, you know, essentially extending empathy to Ethan for his mental state, but trying to not have it distract from the fact that he's experiencing an intense cognitive dissonance, and he might be using this harassment campaign as a way to distract from the cognitive dissonance that he's experiencing, where he's upholding two different beliefs at once. He is still very much involved in the Israeli sort of beliefs, the Israeli propaganda, but at the same time is very much empathizing with the Palestinian people in many instances, and he's struggling with that. Sorry, I'm getting a call. He's struggling with that, and he can't quite, you know, I think cognitive dissonance literally can destroy a person's mental state. So instead of, you know, really tackling that head on, it was easier to go into these online dramas, these online beefs, and start to feel like people are attacking him. That's all I wanted to say with that clip. Like I said, this is a 3-hour video where I'm handling many complex issues, but maybe I should have explained that a little bit more. Anyways, let me continue with this email. This can only be an intentional omission, given the research in your video. You surely know that I was quoting Ethan himself. H3 Podcast episode February 12th, 2025, titled I Can't Handle This Anymore. Timestamp 1939. Ethan openly states that his child contracted the parasite Giardia from his dog, and states that this parasite can only be contracted through fecal ingestion. Ethan, Olive has Giardia. It's a bacterial infection in the intestines that makes you have diarrhea, and Olive has this. She came to us with it. She has diarrhea. And Sonny is crawling around. He's putting everything in his mouth. He's at that age. Now he has Giardia. And now Ela has Giardia. And now this morning I had diarrhea. Crew member asks, what can I do to get it? Ethan responds, it's extremely ridiculous to get. You have to ingest my poop. This is why CPS visited Ethan Klein. He openly announced on his stream himself that his kid had a parasite, then said he thinks they got it from ingesting feces. You also left out that the evidence reveals that Ethan sent himself skulls, attempting again to imply that it was a genuine threat. As far as I don't think, personally speaking, as far as who sent CPS over to Ethan Klein, I think a lot of that is conjecture. I don't think it's appropriate for me to outright state any claim in my video, and that's why I've tried to avoid that, to state that Ethan himself sent CPS over through his own statements versus other streamers sent CPS over through their own statements. I don't think that's appropriate for me to outright state in a video. That's my personal opinion on that. I have seen, through instances like Ruby Frankie, when people are escalating their behavior and it's getting more and more serious, you are just more likely to gather a group of people who are becoming more concerned for your family, for your children, and for yourself and your own mental state. I'm not trying to say that in a demeaning way towards Ethan Klein, but it is just the reality of the situation. When you share your life online to millions of people, people are going to look at a pattern of behavior over time, and I think it's just a natural state of being for many people, especially if you're just naturally a concerned person. So that's my stance on it. Whether someone who called CPS came from Ethan himself and his own statements, someone who knew Ethan personally, or from other streamers and their own statements is, I think, really hard to track unless you were the person who received the call themselves or the person who called. As far as the skull thing, I think that there is two possibilities. Either someone sent Ethan Klein human skulls, and I don't think that's cool. I think that's going too far. It is taking online drama to the next level. Or Ethan Klein himself sent himself human skulls. That is certainly a possibility. And that is certainly him not being in a great mental state and taking things way too far online. Either way, again, I don't think it's appropriate for me to gather evidence and essentially present a case unless I think it's a really, really solid case. And I did not feel that there was a really solid case there. It was a lot of statements. It was a lot of that were made online. And I just didn't feel like, besides the actual, there were skulls sent, I didn't feel like there was enough there to make a solid statement or opinion myself. I think those are the two possibilities, and it's kind of up to you as the viewer to draw your own conclusion. Or, I think that anyone who is going to intensely push one thing or another as far as the human skulls, ultimately, I'm scared that also kind of detracts from the overall message, personally speaking. Again, I don't want this also to detract from my message in this video, but just because that's in this email, I'll respond to that. I have instructed my lawyers which let me double check that I'm pronouncing their names right. Rambar Nissim and Tiffany Hea to examine the possibility of legal action against you for these intentional omissions designed to defame me. I suggest you look up Tiffany in particular. She has some very interesting connections, and you really don't want to mess with her. Have a good day, Joan. Yeah. Also, because I kind of briefly mentioned threats and everything from the H3 fan base, and I know that that legal message is probably gonna lead to a lot of them saying, see, now you're getting messages from the snark community, you're not getting them from our community. What I'm specifically referencing is I got a message from someone saying that they're setting my hoodies on fire, which I don't sell hoodies anymore. I haven't promoted merch in a while because I just don't think, I feel like I want to actually make something good, you know, not that my old stuff wasn't good. I had like designed a logo that I liked and everything, but it was through Teespring, and I heard a lot of quality issues, or thought it was just kind of like hit and miss, and so I haven't promoted it. But they're like, I bought your hoodie a while ago and I'm setting it on fire if you make this video. So it just felt like that was kind of the threatening undertone, essentially. You know, is it a threat? Like, you are going to, you know, but it was essentially a lot of that. And other comments and messages saying that the H3 community will harass you for months if you make this video and you're never going to live it down, essentially. I've heard from other creators that they've received kind of similar levels of hate after making content surrounding H3, and one person should not be devoid of all criticism, especially if they've said slurs to the extent that Ethan has, especially if they've made, you know, similar hateful content about other content creators. The videos I saw about Trisha, the Boston bombing video, all of that I think is warranted of its own criticism. So yeah, that's all I have to say. But beyond all of that, I'm disappointed in myself for the ways in which I covered Palestine. I was essentially trying to ensure that the video would not get reported as promoting terrorism and taken down entirely, and that I could still essentially, you know, promote helpful resources, further a message, be a voice, because I don't often see many voices. I know that some people say that certain larger creators can say certain words and their videos don't get suppressed. They are larger creators. I think that smaller creators have more challenges. At least that's what I've experienced personally with my videos getting censored and taken down. That being said, I'll try to censor my content less. I'll try to, you know, see if I can get away with that on YouTube. It's just been scary lately, and I've been a coward because of that, and I feel disappointed. And that's all I have to say. Thank you for watching this video, if you've taken the time to watch it.